Welcome to the Saturday in Athens podcast. I'm your host, Seth Saunders, joined as always by my co-host, James Kim. We are legitimately live this morning, homie. 8:30, bright and early on a Saturday morning. Your boy was just so excited I couldn't wait any longer. I had to disturb you from your slumber and get you out here to talk some ball.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a stress-free Saturday. No dogs are on a bye. We can actually talk about everything that's going on with college football, and this season has been very, very, very drunk, and I love it.
I mean, so inebriated, and I'm absolutely here for the people watching. I mean, it's just outstanding. Like, homie, we live in a world where Indiana, Navy, and Army are all undefeated and in the top 25, and it's not week one. So, I mean, it's crazy, dude. For the first time ever, College Game Day is going to be in Bloomington, which I absolutely love. They certainly deserve that. I mean, dude, you and I talked about this week. I watched almost their entire game last week. I mean, that squad is real. Like, Kurt Signetti got those boys ripping and rocking. And I know quarterback's not playing today, but I thought their backup looked good last week. So I think they're going to be just fine. That Washington team's fun, though. I mean, Will Rogers in his 676th year of college football is going to play quarterback for the Huskies today, which is great. And he's had a good year. And, dude, big one last night. Did you catch any of the Boise State UNLV game?
I watched the majority of it. I actually fell asleep right at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
You know what my big takeaway from that game was? I mean, I have a lot, but my big one was Barry Odom, fantastic defensive mind, because you could tell from the jump that he was going to have a tough night. And that's coaching and game planning. And I thought they had a really good plan in place. I mean, dude, Ashton struggled last night. That was a very pedestrian performance. And Barry Odom did what we talk about a lot when we talk about the opponents the Dogs are going to play. It's like they made a decision. If we lose tonight, it will not be because Ashton John T beat us. And I guess you could make an argument that he did, but in the grand scheme of things and based on what Boise State generally is wanting to do, he really didn't. I mean, what did he average? Like 3.8 a carry last night? I mean, his first two runs were both for a loss.
No, I think he ended up over 4. He had 33 carries for 128. Isn't that a little over? No, it's a little under 4.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
last night was pedestrian, especially by his standards.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's still a great night. I'm not begrudging any of that. It's just it wasn't, wasn't what we've grown accustomed to when it comes to his performances. But, dude, great game. I mean, Hajj Malik Williams had a nice game. I think he had over 100. He almost had as many rushing yards as John T did.
He had a really nice game. Really nice game. He had 105. He had 105.
Yeah. I think that, if you are a Broncos fan, you have got to be wearing green and yellow every Saturday. Like, you're just the biggest Oregon fan on the planet, because if they do well, it's good for Boise State. Because if Boise State keeps winning, I think they're in if Oregon keeps doing what they've been doing. Like, so let me ask you that. Let's play this out. Let's say that one of Army and Navy is undefeated after the AAC championship game, and Boise State goes 11-1 with the only loss being 12-1 because they would play in the Mountain West title game. Let's say they go 12-1. Yep. Oregon's the only loss they have. And Oregon, let's even say Oregon loses a game, but Oregon is the Big Ten champion. Who do you think gets in? Like, I know it'll be based off ranking, but is an undefeated Army or Navy, given their schedules, where Notre Dame is both of their big win? And I looked at both their schedules, and I think we would probably both agree on this. Not a lot of marquee wins on those ledgers, even if they both win undefeated, right? But, man, I just don't know. From a narrative perspective, how could you keep an undefeated academy out of the 12-team field, right? Like, I would want to see that as a consumer. I'd be fired up if they weren't in.
Well, I think the issue is, first of all, I think Boise gets in, and this is why. if Notre Dame at that point will have 3 losses, is Notre Dame even a ranked team?
Well, so that's my worry is for I think there to be the juice that it needs for one of the academies to get in. I think they both kind of need to be undefeated going into the American title game. Do you disagree? Like,
Yeah, so
and
Notre Dame will have 3 losses,
mm-hmm,
and one of those losses is NIU.
mm-hmm,
And while you and I are in agreement that one of the service academies is great TV, I don't think the general public and the committee will agree with that. I think the committee will be like, especially if Junty is a Heisman Trophy winner, I think they'll be like, let's put Junty, he'll be, TV worthy, and want him in the playoff.
is there?
I think Boise's in that scenario. I think Boise gets in.
Let me throw another one at you, and this is even spicier and something I would like even more. Is there a scenario where both get in? So 12-1 Mountain West champion Boise gets in, and undefeated American champion Army or Navy gets in.
Absolute chaos would have to happen for that. I think you have to have. I think you'd have to have. Well, I mean, the SEC is well on their way to multiple, like a champion, and then multiple 3-loss teams after that. And I think you have to have that after everybody else.
Yeah.
With every other conference. I mean, the Big 12, I think that's a given. The Big 10 is the one that I think is more than likely not going to happen. You're going to have a lot of one. I think you're going to have more 1-loss teams in the Big 10 than any other conference. So the ACC, I think you'll probably have Clemson and
Miami.
SMU, and I mean Pitt's come out. Miami and Pitt. Who knows what Pitt's going to do at this point? I mean, they're rolling at this point. So it's unlikely, but it is a possibility. If the way this season has gone,
Yeah.
it very well could be. In November we could be looking at that happening.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so interesting that given how college football has been, say, the last, let's just say 5 years, but probably longer than that, 12 teams would have been plenty, right? Like, I don't even know if we would have been having conversations like this. But because of how it's been this year, because of how, dude, I just feel like it's been all over the map. I mean, like you said, college football has been overserved. It's time for them to go home and take a nap. And like, it's just been a crazy, crazy year the way things have set up. And so I think the argument becomes the same with IU. Let's say IU goes 11-1 and their only loss is to Ohio State. Like, dude, I think IU has to be in because they're a good football team. And so that's a team out of the Big Ten that nobody had on their bingo card to be in the playoff conversation. And so there's so many of them, man. I mean, even look at that Big 12 race. Iowa State's undefeated, BYU's undefeated, and like SMU's only loss is to BYU. So if SMU wins out and is 11-1, I mean, that's the other thing with the way all these mega conferences are playing out is you could have all these scenarios where the title game participants come down to these tiebreakers that don't even have to do with on-field matchups, right? Like you're talking about, because of the way the structures are, everybody's not going to play each other. And so it's going to come down to records where you may not even have all the same common opponents. And like, I don't know, dude, it's going to be wild. Because there's scenarios in each of the conferences where there could be 3+ teams that are championship game eligible. And it's going to be decided based on this list of metrics that the conferences put together before.
Yeah, I know. I saw I saw a guy do a scenario in the ACC where, because nobody plays anybody, where it literally could get down to the 5th scenario, which could be record of common opponents within conference. Right. And I was just like, dear God.
Yeah, dude. Like I feel like it.
Let's talk about SMU for a second. This is a scenario where it's like, I know they aren't going to get rid of conference championship games, but this is a scenario. Let's talk about SMU. Okay. let's say SMU makes the conference championship game and loses, and they're 11-2, and their only losses are ACC championship game. Whoever, let's say it's Clemson, who wins out the rest of the season, whose only loss is to Georgia,
Right. Yeah.
and SMU's only losses to Big 12 champion, um,
Undefeated BYU.
BYU, and ACC champion undefeated BYU, and ACC champion Clemson, whose only loss was week 1 to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not even play out Georgia's scenario. Let's just leave it at that. And then let's turn around and let's say it's down to them and Tennessee, who finishes 10-2, who lost to Arkansas and Georgia. Who gets in that scenario?
Yeah.
Like
it's like,
do you put in the brand, or do you put in the team who's got the better losses? Like SMU doesn't really have a marquee win, but they certainly have the better losses. Is it how they look in those losses? The BYU loss definitely was close, but I don't really know in those scenarios. Like, it also depends on, for Tennessee, how Alabama looks the rest of the season, because they don't really have a marquee. That's their marquee win right now. So
the Alabama thing is really interesting. All right, because they obviously haven't looked right. And so I know everybody's saying, well, 2 losses, if they win out, they could still get in. And it's like, yeah, I guess. To your point, their marquee win becomes beating Georgia. And I don't know, man. The whole puzzle is crazy. Like, it's so many teams that are involved that I think nobody thought would be involved. And so, look, it's outstanding from a fan perspective, because each week there's all this stuff that matters, and which I'm happy about, because I think this big argument has been, 12-team playoff, regular season is not going to matter now. And I think what we're learning is that's the exact opposite. Like, dude, every week has been so compelling. Like, I was up last night at 11 o'clock watching Boise State play UNLV because it matters. And so I think it's that way across the board. And like, man, it's just been so good for the landscape. And in some ways, man, I'm a little surprised by that. I don't think I estimated the parity would be what it's been thus far. It's just been crazy. And I do think in some ways, and you and I have talked about this, the NIL transfer portal thing, I know people get emotional about, and it's hot button for some folks, but like, I think in a lot of ways, this is a product of that. Like, the competitive landscape is evening out because the talent pool is going different places, because there's opportunity economically and from a playing time perspective. And so because of that, you're getting competitive rosters at places historically you probably wouldn't get them, right? And so, man, it's been awesome. And non-traditional teams involved being awesome, which I think is the coolest part. And the SMU thing is so compelling to me, because this is why they did what they did. SMU said, hey, we want to be in the ACC, and we'll take less money than we're probably justified to have, because we want to be involved in the picture. And we feel good about the resources that we have and putting ourselves in play. And so, like, dude, I think your scenario where if they are playing in the ACC title game and they lose to Clemson, and their 2 losses are to Clemson and BYU, I think it's right where they want to be, right? Because this is kind of what they wanted in this scenario, was we just want to be involved in the conversation, which previously they wouldn't have been. And so SMU is an interesting program, because I think given the landscape, they're just going to keep building and like keep putting themselves in a relevant conversation as it pertains to being involved in the conversation, because they have unlimited resources from a donor perspective.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't think they're going anywhere.
Well, the reason I brought up SMU was in that scenario was strictly because it's like, I don't feel like a team should be punished for making the conference title game. And I feel like in the past, college football has punished teams for making and losing the conference title game.
Dude,
And I
Georgia
never
last year.
understood that. It's like Georgia's several years before, 2018, 2019. So
Yeah.
it's just, I never understood that. It's like, yes, I understood you lost earlier in the year and you had your chance in the title game to redeem yourself. But if you only have one loss throughout the regular season, this extra game that's not part of the regular season should not punish you. I understand that's your chance to punch your ticket, but it's not like college basketball where every team in the conference plays a tournament to get in, and then everybody's like, oh, it's the regular season. That's not exactly the way it works because it's not single elimination. So I never understood that concept. And I feel like the conference title games now more than ever are going to be like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. I do think that they have been used in the past as sort of like a knockout game. Um, I mean, dude, the SEC title game last year, I think, is a prime example of that. Like, Georgia's undefeated. Everybody was, I think, very clear in their opinion that they're the number one team in the country. And then they lose to Alabama, and they're not even in the conversation anymore about being in the playoff field, which is bananas in a lot of ways, right? You lose a one possession game, and you're just out. And so, I mean, we're going to see, man. It's going to be awesome. I think that championship weekend is going to be crazy because you're going to have so much more at stake and so much more involved. I do think the American thing is interesting from the perspective of you could have a scenario where Army Navy play, both undefeated, play in the conference title game. Selection Sunday is the next day for the playoff, and then one of them could be in the playoff, and they have to play each other all over again in a game that, outside of history, legacy, and pride, which are all beyond important in that matchup, is really all that's on the line. And so you go, what if Army's quarterback gets hurt, or what if Navy's quarterback gets hurt in that game, and then they can't play in the
Yeah.
playoffs? You know what I'm saying? Like this is one of those, I think, nightmare scenarios from a competitive perspective that people have talked about. Is how does all that look, and do teams start thinking about maybe we don't play certain guys and all this type of stuff? Which, who knows? We're going to see, man. Like, all that could happen.
I
Now,
can't
look,
I can't see the service academies doing that.
they won't. No, absolutely not. They won't. All those guys will play. I mean, no question. I think that matchup is, there's too much legacy, pride, all those things on the line. I mean, all those guys will play 100%. But in other conferences, it would not be that way, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so, like, what about I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's going today. What's the matchup you're looking at today where you're most, I think, locked in or tuned in, and like, this is one I got to sit down and watch all day?
There's a couple, and they're a little bit different than what people probably would expect. I mean, everybody's talking about the LSU Texas A&M game,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's
Yep.
an intriguing matchup. I'm gonna watch it, but that's not the most intriguing matchup for me. I want to see Illinois Oregon. I want to see how Oregon plays as the top dog. And I mean, Illinois is a good football team. I know that they have the one loss, but Altmaier's a good quarterback. I know it's in Autzen. I expect Oregon to win this game. I do. But they're huge favorites.
That's what I was just going to
And
ask you. Did you see the number on this?
yeah, 22 and
22
22
and
and
a
a half
half?
as of this morning. Yeah, I think that that's
Crazy.
really high.
Seems very high.
I mean, Oregon's only loss is a night game at Happy Valley. So I'm sorry, Illinois' only loss is a night game at Happy Valley. I think that I think Illinois is gonna like play really well in this game, and I think it's gonna be a little uncomfortable for Ducks fans, at least in the first half. I mean, I could be completely wrong. They could come out and blow the doors off the Illini, but I mean, they're a good football team. I could see this being a little uncomfortable in the first half for the Ducks.
Plus, don't you think too,
The other.
like, a Brett Bielema team is the kind of team that's a nightmare for a matchup like this, where he's going to undoubtedly want to control the football on offense. They're going to run a lot,
Yeah.
try to shorten the game, lean on his defense, give Oregon less possessions than they want. Yeah, man, it's a really interesting dichotomy of styles between what Oregon wants to do and what Illinois is going to want to do. And yeah, dude, that's a fun one. And that's one is not getting talked about as much as I think probably should, because I don't think people think Illinois is real. And so it's like, yeah, Illinois
Yeah.
only got one loss, but it's Illinois. And their offense isn't great and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, man. We're going to see.
Yeah. I also think that if this was a couple years ago and with the old clock rules in college football, Bielema wouldn't have that style of offense for Bielema wouldn't work as well in this type of game. But with the new clock rules and the NFL clock rules, it's perfect for this type of what he wants to do. Just lean on his running game and just chew up clock. Like they could keep the ball for 40 minutes today. So the other game I'm really curious about is Missouri and Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Alabama's offense since that first half against Georgia has just, been stuck in neutral. And Missouri, they've been stuck in neutral all season. We talked about it since we thought about that the heartbeat of that team, that offense was Schrager. I say his name wrong every single time, and without him, they just haven't looked the same. It's in Tuscaloosa, but I don't like the spread on this. 15.5 is a lot. I'm not touching this one, but if I was, I'd probably take Mizzou in the points. Not saying Missouri's going to win, but Missouri's still 6-1. They still got an outside shot. Everybody's like, they've looked so bad that they've dropped them down in the polls a lot. And granted, they have not looked good, but they're still 6-1.
Brady Cook's health status today? Playing for sure.
They said he's gonna play. I don't know. He's gonna be on one leg, so
I can't figure that offense out. It makes no sense to me. Like, Luther Burden has been, invisible is probably the wrong word, but pretty darn close. Like, which is insane, given the talent that he is and given what they were last year and how much they had returning. Like, I can't make heads or tails of what's going on with them. And I think the interesting part is they've been winning with defense, which is not what anybody anticipated. And so, I don't know, that Alabama team is hard to figure. They're just so opposite of what we grew accustomed to when Nick was there. And I think the big thing is it's discipline. Like, they do so much self-inflicted problems, like so many penalties, so many mistakes that you're just not used to seeing. Like that Tennessee game last weekend, dude, Jalen didn't look good. Like, if he played well, they win that ball game. Like, there was plenty of opportunity there for Alabama, and Tennessee's offense, again, in the first half, couldn't figure it out, couldn't get going. And so, dude, they're interesting too, man. Like, their defense is good, Tennessee's. And
really good.
If they can figure things out, and when I say that, I mean if Nico can figure things out, if you watch their games, the game plan's good offensively. They got guys running wide open all over the field. Like, dude, how many shots in the first half did they have where Nico overthrows it or misses it or something like that? Like, dude, the scheme is there, and they run the football. Like, the Tennessee team is interesting if Nico can figure things out, and like, especially when they're playing in Knoxville. But they don't so much, as a Dogs fan, they don't make me so nervous, just because I feel like what Heupel wants to do and what Nico does is not what generally gives Glenn and Kirby problems from a defensive perspective. I mean, dude, I think that's what we talked about with the Texas thing last week, right? Is Ewers playing was almost best case scenario for Georgia, because you don't have to game plan for mobile quarterback, which is great. Yeah. And I think that all bore itself out. Dude, let's talk about that, because we're like 25 minutes in. We haven't even talked about that game yet. I mean, what a game plan defensively. Like, you talk about stepping up to the plate and knocking it out of the park. Like, Kirby and Glenn, unbelievable. And the execution by the guys on the defensive side of the football was as good as we've seen maybe since Tennessee 2022, no? Like, I felt like that day they had an excellent plan, and that's what the game Saturday night felt like.
I think maybe Ole Miss last year was pretty close
Oh
to
well,
the execution of the game plan.
yeah. I mean, they hung
Yeah,
a 50. They
I
hung a
mean,
50 burger on
that
Lane last year.
no, I'm talking about defensively. Just let's talk about defensively. Defensively, like I feel like the game plans have been. It seems like whenever it's like, oh, this high-powered offense comes in, or we're playing that high-powered offense, it's like, all right, well, we're going to shut that high-powered offense down, and yeah, that's exactly what Kirby and Glenn did. I mean, let's be honest. The tackles, they said it on the broadcast several times. The tackles had a rough day,
Yeah,
and Jalen Walker and Mike Hill. I mean, they showed why they're gonna. They made themselves some money on last Saturday,
they so
and
did.
they played excellent. Jalen especially, but it also showed how much a healthy Mike Hill means for this defense,
Mm-hmm.
and I think not having him for that, 4 or 5 game stretch, or having him at, 50, 60, 70% really had them struggling. Because not only as a pass rusher, but just as a stability presence in the run game.
Yeah,
Because they couldn't get the running game going at all. They were talking about that running back. I mean, I know he's young, but how he had 100+ yards against Oklahoma and all this stuff. And I mean, he had one rush over 8 yards, I think, all day. And their longest rush was that rush that Arch had when he came in the into the first half. And but I will say this: there were still some plays that Texas missed, and especially Arch missed.
sure. Yeah, yeah,
There
sure.
was that freshman wide receiver they had, Wingo, was running open a couple of times at the end of the first half, and Arch, I mean, because the defensive line and the linebackers were just in their face all day, they just didn't have time to see him. And I will say this: the secondary for 90% of the game played their butts off,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't seen them play like that really all season. And I feel like that was almost as impressive as what the defensive line and linebackers did, because we talked about it. We felt like it was all conducive of each other because we weren't getting pressure. Because we weren't getting pressure, the secondary was left kind of hung out to dry. And as soon
Yeah,
as you get pressure, everything kind of fell into place.
yeah. I mean, look, dude, it was the game of Dalen Everett's career. Like, I mean, and it's not close. He was
Yeah.
unbelievable. That I've watched the corner blitz like 175 times. I can't stop watching it. It's just, I mean, that is like one of those hits you dream about.
It's like the Stokes blitz. It's like the Stokes blitz
Yeah.
against Tennessee.
Yes. 100%. I mean, it was awesome. And it looked to me, I don't think Quinn ever saw it. Like, I don't think because essentially, like, that's where you're supposed to look if you're getting that. And dude, he never even peeked at it. And it was just boom, boom, boom. Uh, they were, yeah, man. I just thought the game plan was incredible. But yes, to your point, I thought the secondary played outstanding. But I also think part of the reason they played outstanding was because the game plan allowed them to. Meaning, they said, okay, this is what we don't do well, and we're not going to do any of that. Like, I just think they put them in better positions, and so I don't think
Yeah.
we've ever made any argument that the athletes weren't there and the talent wasn't there. It was just guys weren't playing that way. And so I just thought they put them in better positions. I thought it was an excellent game plan, start to finish. I mean, it was awesome. And then I also thought, and we had talked about this, and I think this was more of our expectation for the Alabama game, but it really bore fruit Saturday night was Kirby was angry. And dude, I don't know what it is, man, but he just
Yeah,
coaches
he
better
was.
when he coaches better when he's angry. He does. Like he just needs to be angry all the time. Like, sorry, Mary Beth. He just needs to be angry. Like, get that boy fired up
Darth Kirby.
because he does, dude. He's just different. Like when he has an axe to grind, he's better. I don't know any other way to say it. And so like you could tell that Saturday night they were locked in. And I think it's just a reflection of how he was. Small pivot, but still connected to that game. Can we talk about Vandy putting the net up at their stadium? Did you see this? Did you see the
So
pictures?
spectacular. So spectacular. One of the funniest things. Yes, one of the funniest things I've seen all season.
Hilarious. I thought it was fake when I first saw it. Like I thought it was like a parody thing. Apparently it is not, which makes me so happy.
It is not.
Oh my
It's
god.
great.
It's so funny. Like
It's
out of
great.
from the clouds, Vandy in so many ways is winning college football this year. Like whether it be
Yes.
marching the goalposts all the way down Broadway from that stadium, which you and I have made that walk. That is not a short walk, my friend.
Yeah. It's not a short walk. Nope.
Not a short walk. And we did not do it with goalposts draped across our shoulders. So good for them. And now this, it's just hysterical. I think also given the fact, and I know it was not any type of ricochet shot, it's fact. But Coach Saban going on game day and talking about like every SEC stadium's tough to play for except Vandy. And then for Alabama to go lose there and then all the things that have happened, it's just been hilarious. And you talk about something that is from the clouds. Like I absolutely did not have any of the Vandy storylines on the 2024 college football season bingo card, but here we are, brother. Here we are.
Yes.
So given that matchup today,
I think that's an intriguing game as well.
I was just going to ask you, I can't even believe I'm going to say this out loud, but do you think there's any Vandy magic there against Texas in Nashville? Or like, is this one of those things? Also, hold on. I'm all over the place right now, but this is what you get on a Saturday morning. Did I see somebody say, and I think this is right because I thought I checked it, Texas's first true road game, true SEC road game? Like they haven't been on the road in the conference yet. Correct?
That is in the conference. Yes. In the conference. Yes.
Yeah. They're going to go to fearsome Nashville to play Vandy. You and I were there. What was that?
Yeah, because Oklahoma at the
2019?
neutral site. Oklahoma. Yes, opening game 2019. Pickens' first game.
God, dude, we're getting old. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so let's go on that game. I'm going to give you a higher lower on that game, a little underdog fantasy higher lower. If we go Diego Pavia, is that how you say his last name, Pavia? Am I saying that right? I always mess this up.
Yeah.
That's right, isn't it? I mean, he's an electric story too.
Pavia.
Okay, I'm saying it right. Dude, your boy's not great with last names, so that's a good one. Okay, let's say his touchdown total, his touchdown higher lower is 2.5. You taking the higher or the lower on that?
That includes his rushing.
Yeah, let's go total touchdowns. He's 2.5 higher or lower. Where do you fall on that?
Total touchdowns. I think that's higher.
I kind of think it's higher too. I mean, look, this is what we've been getting into this year. Your boys like a higher lower here. And so this is the kind of stuff that you can get on Underdog Fantasy. And look, man, fans across 33 states are getting in on this. And you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats. You know, touchdowns, passing yards, whatever it may be. We've talked about this. You can even do one on punts. Higher or lower on punts, which is a fun one to play with, especially when the booming onion Brett Thorson is involved. So maybe we'll play with that a little bit next week. You can make picks on Underdog. It's straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with your promo code SAP, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code SAP to claim your new customer special for a free pick and your deposit offer. You must be 18 or older, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, and 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona. You must be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK or text HOPE New York 467-369. Dude, speaking of Brett Thorson, I think in some ways, and Brett Thorson plus Peyton Woodring, I thought the kicking game last Saturday night was excellent for the Dogs. Excellent. Like, Peyton Woodring just hitting kicks like
It's been
he's got his eyes
excellent
closed
all year.
It really has. And
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's such a weapon.
He's had that one miss all year against Mississippi State.
Yeah. And that was a bomb.
So he's been great. He's been great. Yeah, that was 55 plus, I think, and at the end of the first half. And Thorson has been lights out. He's had like 2 bad punts all year. I mean, they finally gave up one return, and it was for -2 yards against Alabama, I think. Where the kid, or no, was it Alabama? I don't remember who it was against, but he got -2 yards return yards. So I'm okay with that. You know, I mean, -2 return yards, not bad in 2 seasons.
Dude, Brett Thorson is like, he needs as much camera time as possible. Like, he is laugh out loud funny on demand. Like, that dude is.
He really is
a freaking riot. Dude, I want to talk to you about that Pitt game. You brought up Pitt earlier. Pitt's undefeated out of nowhere, and that game Thursday night was interesting, man, because Kyle McCord, tough night, homie. Tough night. 5 picks, 3 of them pick sixes. And, like, you take the pick sixes out, which I know we're playing the ifs, ands, or buts game, but that's 21 points, man. That game goes from 41-13 to 20-13. Like, Pitt didn't really do a ton offensively. And so, but that's what winning teams do, right? You find a way. And Narduzzi got the boys playing, man. Like, they're doing it. And they have the hardest road left to get to Charlotte for the ACC title game. Like, they got to play. They got to play Clemson. I'm pretty sure they got to play SMU too, don't they? Like, they got to play the gauntlet.
Next week. Yeah, next week.
Yeah, man.
ACC, and they've got Louisville
ACC
too.
out of nowhere.
I know Louisville struggled, but they've got Louisville.
Cardiac Cards came back last night.
I mean, let's be realistic. The bottom of the ACC is not as weak as we thought it would be. I mean, listen to Pitt's schedule. They've got SMU next week. They've got Virginia, which has been much better than we thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
They've got Clemson. They've got Louisville, who has struggled but still a very compelling team. And then they've got BC, which I don't think we expected to win 4 games all season, and they're 4-4 right now.
No.
So, I mean, that's I won't say a gauntlet, but that's a tough row. If they finish that undefeated and they don't make the playoffs, man, that's a travesty.
I thought culturally that Billy O'Brien hire for BC was perfect.
Oh,
that's a perfect hire for them. Plus, man, dude, don't get it twisted. I know he didn't have great success with the Texans. Like, Billy O'Brien can coach, homie. So I think that's a nice fit for them. And I think that's a guy that could go into a lot of houses in the Northeast and recruit kids. Like, BC, I think you can recruit there. You know, do you remember, dude, this is ancient history. You remember when I went to the BC Florida State game during the monsoon hurricane back, like, when Matt Ryan was there? Do you remember this, when we were living in Boston?
Oh, my God. Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. My brother's a huge Florida State fan, so he flies up for the game.
Yeah, that was forever ago. What was that?
dude, it had to be
Yeah,
like 08, 07 or 08, somewhere in there. There was a nor'easter in Boston. Like we are dressed in
I think it was
full
a 7.
full head to toe rain gear, like all wrapped up. It was so cold. And yeah, dude, we go to the game. Matt Ryan's there. Florida State, it's a sod game for Florida State, which if you don't follow Florida State, sod games are, they'll go on the road. And if it's a huge game, I think it generally, there's rules to it, which I don't know as well. Jeff could obviously tell us, but it has to be like a ranked opponent. And anyways, if they win the game, they cut up a piece of the opponent's field and they take it back to Tallahassee with him and they bury it in the sod cemetery, which I love. So anyways, great game, night game. We had an awesome time. Florida State wins. Matt Ryan was in a pretzel all night, like couldn't do anything. And yeah, side game. They rip up a piece of turf from the sideline, take it back. But like that was a cool spot to watch a game. That's the only time I've ever been to Chestnut Hill. Only time I've ever been to BC's campus. It was cool, man. Chestnut Hill's nice. Like I could imagine going there, and that'd be a cool place to go to college and play ball.
Wasn't BC ranked in the top 5 in that game?
Dude, I'm pretty sure they were number 2 in the country.
God, that was a crazy year too.
It was a different time, man. Different time.
Different time.
I mean, have they been relevant football-wise since then, since Matty Ice left? I don't think so, right?
Not really. I mean, they've had some good players, but individual players, but not. I don't think they've had a good team since then.
You know, your boy's got a soft spot for the Eagles because his all-time favorite player went there. Oh, come on, brother. The greatest under 6 foot quarterback in the history of football.
Oh, Doug Flutie. I'm thinking recent. I'm trying to think recent. Oh God, you're going way back in the time machine here. Yeah, the jersey collection. I don't think we've ever talked about that on the pod.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about my sickness, my own crazy. At one time, I don't think I still do, because I'm married and I've had to make more rational choices with my life. But at one time, I had a Doug Flutie jersey from every team that he ever played for from BC on, including CFL jerseys.
Yeah. I helped purchase a couple of those. So those were a couple birthday presents.
That's one of those where you say like, what's the internet trend? Can you match my freak? Like that is a definite. Your boy's got a sickness there. Okay. Ain't nobody matching that freak. That is also one of my biggest regrets.
That was
the year that I was working with the Skins and got to go work the Super Bowl. I was walking around Joe Robbie, and what is it now? Hard Rock. It'll always be Joe Robbie to me. I was walking around Joe Robbie. You know, we had to get there like, we had to get there like 8 a.m, and so we're walking around like, I don't know, lunchtime, 12 or 1 o'clock on game day. And they're having all this pregame stuff outside the stadium that they're setting up and all these things. Well, dude, there's this band that's rehearsing and getting ready. Dude, it was freaking Flutie's band. So literally, it's like me and my buddy, and then Doug Flutie's brother, and their band, and like 10 feet away. And I'm like, dude, that's Doug Flutie. And I'm like, dude, you can't go talk to him right now. Like, they're by themselves. They're like getting ready. You can't be the guy that like goes and talks to them. This is like if they were at the restaurant and you went and talked to him. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. It's my guy. Like, he's like, you can't do it. So he talked me out of it. So I didn't do it. And I'm like, damn it. What a whiff. Like, could have got the picture with my boy. Yeah, it's my guy. And the main reason being, number one, he wore 22 in college, which 2 was your boy's number. And he was under 6 foot and electric under center, which was the same story that I could not duplicate. I was certainly not electric, but I was definitely under 6 foot. So he was my guy. But yeah, BC, yeah, that was a wormhole to go down. But dude, also apparently like he is a ridiculous athlete and super competitive and still plays in like a recreational men's baseball league on Monday nights in the greater Boston area. He was at Fenway.
Have you heard him tell the story about the Hail Mary?
Heard him tell it?
Yeah.
Hold on. Before you tell this, who was the receiver that caught the pass?
Have you heard his? Okay. You're gonna go down some trivia lane. I have no idea.
You don't know who it is? This is a great trivia question.
No.
I think I'm gonna Gerard
Nope,
Phelan.
no clue.
Gerard Phelan is the guy's name.
Gerard Phelan. Nope, no clue.
That's like a
Would have never gotten that in a million years.
That's like a Trivial Pursuit for the orange pie question right there.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
So
okay, go ahead. Tell the story.
Remember,
I need to hear it.
I can't remember what he. I can't remember. Okay. I think he was on Edelman's podcast. I'm not 100% sure which podcast he was on, but I'm pretty sure it was Edelman's. So he says he's talking about it, and he's like, I'm running around trying to buy time, and I throw the pass, and he's like, and all of a sudden I look to my right, and my tight end. He said if I would have just thrown it to him, it wouldn't have been this great play, and he could have walked into the end zone.
Yeah. Dude.
So, and he's like, I talk to him all the time, and he gives me so much crap about it because he's like, I was just standing there with everybody's in the middle of the end zone covering all the wide receivers, and I'm just standing there by myself.
He's like, I could have been the guy. I could have had the glory.
Yeah. But he said apparently it would have been a walk-in touchdown. Like, nobody was around him.
Dude, speaking of Edelman, Julian Edelman's hilarious. Like, hilarious. He's the guy. So, dude, I didn't know this. Apparently, Julian Edelman is I don't know if it's maybe mom and dad or one side of the family is Jewish. And so he's getting interviewed about being a Jewish player in the NFL. And he had one of the funniest lines. He goes, well, I'm Jew-ish. Like, not full on. Oh, dude. He's the same one. He's the same one that they asked him if he was superstitious. And he said, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. Like, that dude is he is a freaking time, man. And his podcast is hilarious. Like, the stories that he tells and the guests. Dude, he had Bill O'Brien on his podcast, which was awesome. Like, him and Billy O'Brien telling stories was electric. Bill O'Brien, funny dude. Like, really, really funny dude. They were good, man. Really good.
The stories they tell about Belichick are laugh out loud funny.
Oh God, yeah.
Like I imagine Belichick sitting at home listening to this stuff, being like, "What the fuck?"
So here's the other thing. I think he has his media persona, which I think he has carefully crafted. Like, he had no desire to give the media anything, which I loved. But the flip side of it is Bill Belichick, low key, really funny guy, and like funny personality. And I don't think anybody had it where he's going to be the football media personality in 2024 that kind of takes things by storm. Like, he's outstanding on the Manningcast. Outstanding. Great stories, really funny, like super dry and sarcastic, and just going, Bill, where have you been? Like, let it fly, man. Like, he was also, I don't know if you know this about me or not, but I can't do awkward situations or awkward comedy. Like, I hate movies like Meet the Parents. Like, I don't like it. And so in turn, I don't like roasts because it's just, I'm uncomfortable the whole time. And so, but we ended up watching some of the Brady roast on Netflix, and Belichick was, I mean, from the clouds, just, he was the star of the show for me. Like, he was great.
No, I thought it was entertaining. Belichick is, I love the dry of it. He reminds me of
Yes.
like my grandfather a little bit, like just kind
Oh
of,
yeah.
out of nowhere, like, you out of nowhere, gonna just smack you in the face and be like, all right, well, I feel emasculated. Thanks. So,
Dude, yeah. He's just out of nowhere, man. I just think he's obviously, dude, he's super smart. And so he's funny and he's quick, but he does it like with the delivery with that shit eating grin on his face where you're just like, I didn't see that coming, Bill. Did not see that coming. I think it's no different with Nick, right? Like people had their opinions of Nick, and then he has been, and the ratings are reflecting it. College Game Day is on pace to have its best season ever, and I think a lot of that's driven by Saban has been an unbelievable addition to that crew, and like the value that he provides from a storytelling perspective, and dude, he recreated the nothing speech last week, and if you watch that and you're like,
yeah.
I would run through a wall right now for this guy. Like, you just kind of get and understand why he was what he was. I mean, like, every week it's something. He tells some story or relays something, and you're like, how could you not want to play for this guy? And I'm just going to tell you right now, when he's ready to step away from the sideline, it is going to be the same way with Kirby Paul Smart. Kirby would be excellent on a platform like that.
No, I agree. And it's kind of funny because we were, I don't know if we were talking about it after he was announced his retirement, but it's like the little things that you hear about, like Alabama making the changes and on time. I think that it wasn't so much the NIL stuff that made him want to step away. It was the kids, this
Yeah.
generation of kids that
Yep.
made him want to step away. It's just, it's like, I call them, you're always like, the microwave generation, they wanted
Mm-hmm.
everything right away.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they're just, I think that they're very sensitive. I call my kids snowflakes. So I won't say all kids are snowflakes, but it's just, they're very sensitive and they, can't take criticism and stuff like that. So I think that it had a lot to do with the kids and the reason he stepped away. And man, was not a fan of Game Day the past couple of years. I'll be flat out admit it. Didn't really watch it very much. I'd watched like a
Same.
little bit of it, but I have been glued to the TV for the majority of the time that I've had to be able to watch it. And when we're done with our pod, I'm going to go sit down and watch it
Same.
until I have stuff to do today. So it's been very entertaining, and I enjoy watching him speak.
Yeah, dude, he's I can't get enough of it, man. Like, you and I have said this a lot, and this was before he stopped coaching. Like, you can root against him or not like him because he's not the coach of your team, but dude, if you didn't respect what he did and recognize and acknowledge that he is the greatest for a reason, something's wrong with you. Like, he's
Yeah.
he's the best, man, and I feel even more convicted in that after consuming him on game day this year. Like, you just see it. You go, oh, this is why. Like, he's letting his personality come out, and like you just kind of get it. But I think with that though, I think people in general have a problem with excellence. Meaning people want to be excellent, but they're not willing to do what's required to be excellent. And so I think when
Yeah.
you see somebody that is upholding that standard, it kind of puts a mirror in front of your face. And people don't like that, right? They don't like looking in front of the mirror and going, yeah, I'm not excellent. And that's okay, man. Like, he has a speech that he gave at some event where he talks about the pursuit of average versus the pursuit of excellence. And he's like, look, man, it's the human condition to be average. To be excellent is the outlier. And I just think that's the other piece of it, is just from a leadership perspective. He articulates the mission extremely well, and I think makes it so consumable, which is why it worked so well for so long. But I agree with you. I think the level of kid that can tolerate the standard that he required, I just don't think it was there, to the point where he's like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I cannot deal with this. I can't protect these kids all day and like manage their enormous sensitive egos. Like he's like, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. He's told, you can kind of tell that Julio Jones is one of his favorites. And it seems from the stories that he told that Julio was just a grinder, man. Like had all the talent in the world. And of all players that could have been like, yeah, I don't want to do it that way. I'm good enough. Julio was like, yeah, let's coach me hard and get as much out of me as possible. Let's uphold the standard. And so he tells all these stories about kind of guys like Julio. And I just don't think that's the kid now. I don't think that's what you get. And that's a broad stroke, and that's certainly not the case all the time. But I think you're right. I think from the global perspective, he's like, I just can't do this anymore, man. I cannot do it. And so, but he couldn't have walked into a better situation now. Like this game day thing is perfect for him. He's probably making a boatload of money. He's got none of the stress, plays a ton of golf, and he's still involved with the college football world, which is, it's best of all worlds. Plus, I think it's made, to your point, the product so much better. I think the other thing, too, and I'm interested to hear what you think about this, don't you think he's a great counterbalance to McAfee? Like, McAfee's too much for me. It's too much all at one time. And, like,
Yes.
I think Saban balances that out in a way that makes it somewhat tolerable. Like, I get that he's entertainment and I get the push with him, but like, oh, dude, I can only take him in small doses. Otherwise, I'm like, I got to watch something else. Like, this is too much.
It's very interesting more towards us. So, and older people, like that's exactly what it is. Saban's more analytical, but McAfee's more boisterous and more crowd. McAfee's a wrestler.
Yes.
I mean, that's just who he is.
Yes.
He's shooting promos.
Yes, that's right. That's a great way to put it.
Constantly. Yeah. He's shooting promos in a setting that there shouldn't be promos. So it's like you said, it's uncomfortable. It makes it uncomfortable, and I understand that. For me, him on TikTok clips is fine. On game day, but I think that's a different setting. It's kind of like he's there to incite the crowd and get the crowd into it. And I feel like that's his job, and he does it really well. But for, I think, our age and up, it's just it's awkward. It feels clunky. So I feel the exact same way. And you're right, but I think I think Saban's a great counterbalance for that. And I think Saban is the one who kind of brings it back whenever McAfee kind of goes off the rails. And I don't think they had that last year. I think they just kind of let Pat do whatever he wanted.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think some of it's them finding their rhythm with that. I mean, I think that, to your point, I think the promos and the shoots and kind of that WWE Raw vibe is good from an entertainment perspective, where it like brings different eyeballs in. And I think, to your point, like the younger crowd is probably cool with it, but it sometimes can suck all the oxygen out. And I think now it's tempered a little bit. I also think they've kind of figured out layering it, and it's worked a little better this year. But like, dude, it's not something they can sustain for a 3-hour show. Like it's just too much. I also just don't think, Pat's entertainment, but Pat's not a lot of substance. And I think that's the missing piece too, that Saban provides, is like there's substance with entertainment value. I think that's what makes him so dynamic. Is he can look at the all 22 with you and do the cut ups and tell you all the things that are happening, but he can also tell you a story and like tell you about his journey as a coach and things that he saw. Like, man, I thought the story that he shared about his shift between leadership style when he was first starting to be a head coach at Kent State, Michigan State, and then kind of how he had to transition at Michigan State into the back part of his career, that stuff's gold, right? And that's the value that he provides. So yeah, I think it's been better. But I'm with you, man. I'm gonna, as soon as we get off, I'm gonna go watch it and tune in, because they're gonna do something that you take value from. So, well, look, homie, that's all I got today, man. We got an exciting week coming next week. Laura Rutledge coming on the show to preview the cocktail party with us, which is going to be absolutely awesome. She's great every time she's on, and has become, dude, she's spectacular at what she does on SEC Nation, on NFL Live, whatever it may be. When she's doing covering sideline, all those things. But I think more importantly, like with our interactions with her, she's genuine. Like, she's awesome and makes time for folks in the college football landscape, which we're just grateful and appreciate. And so I'm excited to hear her perspective on the cocktail party and everything else that's going on in this crazy world. We're also going to have our buddy Ray Fulcher on sometime next week. He released a new song last night called Two Cigars. If you have not heard it, make sure and go stream it this weekend. It was inspired by one of his buddies had his father passed away the day of the national title game when they played Alabama in 2022. And so it's got a dog storyline to it, but it's real life. And I think anybody that consumes college football and has lost somebody that they loved and shared that passion with, it's so good. So make sure and go check that out. We'll have Ray on next week to talk about it. And I don't know, I might try and convince him to try and sing it for us while he's on air. So it's going to be a fun week, man. It's favorite week of the year. I love cocktail party week. So yeah, man, we're fired up. And until then, enjoy another crazy day of college football. Breathe it all in, and go Dogs.